everything. So what if I told you that a buyer lost a dream home, not because of price, but because of financing, sorry, but because the referring broker didn't know the laws of state that they were sending them to. It happened to me. It happened to Betsy. And today we're going to talk about why this keeps happening and what every broker needs to know before they refer a client across state lines. I'm Niki Shelton, your local Kitsap broker here in Kitsap County, keeping it real. And joining me today is someone I respect in this industry so very much, and Betsy Tarpley with Coldwell Banker. Betsy has a story that runs parallel to mine in a way that I think every broker in this country needs to hear. Welcome to the show, Betsy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Fabulous. So, I just thought maybe before we jump into our stories, because I mean, we both have a story about this, and it's like it was kind of a sad situation. I mean, I don't know how yours ended up, but it totally didn't work for mine. But I thought maybe it'd be interesting to kind of do some history. And I know you're good at history, right? I love you. So you guys, way back when, I mean, like our Northwest MLS, we've been kind of like leaders, and I mean, compared to the rest of the country. And you're licensed in 3 states?
I had been. Currently, I'm just licensed in the state of Washington,
Okay.
but I was licensed in the state of California, and I started in the state of Colorado.
Okay, and I have Washington and Nebraska still, although I'm mainly focused here in Washington. But even when I was traveling, back to Nebraska a couple of years ago, the vibe as far as like what we were doing and as far as what we were required to do, I should say, even was totally different than in Nebraska. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that. I mean, there was kind of I don't even know what started it. Do you know what started it as far as getting the buyer agency agreement?
Well, the big thing was just the class action lawsuit that had occurred for many years and was finally settled with the National Association of Realtors.
But that was in Illinois. We actually started that way before, though. We started that form.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That form has always been there. Even back in 2013, when I started in Colorado with a brokerage firm, we were asked with that brokerage firm to have a buyer's agreement, because it was really kind of just to connect with the buyer, make sure you had a buyer that was serious.
Right.
So then when everything happened,
but then we added even before the rest of the country even jumped onto the buyer agency agreement, though, we actually added where the compensation had to be put on that form. And that kind of threw a lot of people for a curveball, because, it's like, well, how do you do that? Because, it's not the normal procedures. I mean, it was always negotiable, but it wasn't like, oh, no, buyer, you can just walk away if they don't pay it. I mean, it was it got to be very, I mean, it was written out, which was transparent. For everybody.
Yeah. Yes. And that's the biggest thing with our Northwest MLS. We're member owned, which is different from, and I think there's only 33 member owned MLSs throughout the country. The rest are owned by the National Association of Realtors and abide by, their rules. Our rules seem to be a little more strict, even though, we're not part of NAR, which is good. And the Northwest MLS has actually led the way on a lot of things, including referrals and being transparent about whether or not a broker or agent gets a referral fee. So everything is out there for the consumer.
And I think I can push this forward. Let me see here. Oh, no, wait. Oops, I was on the wrong slide, maybe. Sorry, you guys. There's the slide 1. That's the history of it. So if you want to check our numbers and stuff, that's what it is. Sorry about that, because we jumped ahead straight.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. My fault. My bad. But yeah, so back in I don't know, I guess it was late 2023, early 2024. That is when our Northwest ML said, hey, guys, not only is this form available, but you have to use it. And then later that year, that's when the lawsuit came down. And pretty much the rest of it's realtors. It's not every single, because that was who was sued. It was the National Association of Realtors. So it wasn't every real estate brokerage out there, but it was the National Association of Realtors. So, and
there were several big named
companies,
brokerages.
Yes.
Were also in part of the lawsuit ensued. But the state of Washington made this a law. So this is actually a state law, where in some of the states, I believe that they're not laws. So it makes it very different if you're in another state, understanding that,
or if you're not a realtor even.
Or if you're not a realtor, to understand that too.
Yes.
Right.
So pretty much what the law said was that it had to be, you had to have a buyer broker agency before you go show any house, or at least as soon as possible as you can get it.
Mm-hmm.
Then it said you couldn't have the sellers and the seller's commission paying their broker and the buyer's brokers, or they had to be decoupled. They couldn't be on the same page saying the same, they couldn't be together, at least here in Washington. Not everywhere again, but it's important to know the difference. And then the other thing was throughout the rest of the association, the NAR, they also said that you had to, they didn't want it published. They didn't want the rate published, but because we're a member owned, we decided we're leaving it in because we go for transparency.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the purpose why they went to it, but anyway, that's not me. I don't know. Yeah. And then like Betsy was going on to here before, she was saying that, they're adding a referral, and I'll put it back to that page so you can see this. There we go, because now we're caught up on where we're supposed to be. But this is talking about if somebody refers you, now we have to be transparent about what your person that we're referring gets or is getting paid, what their commission is on that, because there's usually a referral commission. Mm-hmm. And our Northwest MLS believes that, and I agree with them. I think it's important. Too. I think it's important to know where your money is going and who it's going to. I mean, It makes you more aware and what you need to do. So it's not necessarily changing your numbers, but at least you have understanding like, oh yeah, my cousin Susan who referred me to this person to take care of me over here, she's going to get a little bit of it and she's been taken care of. Peace of mind.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times you don't know that somebody says, oh, let me refer you to an agent. Maybe their reasons for doing that is because they do get the referral fee, and it does need to be transparent. And you do want to make sure if an agent is referring you, that they're referring you to somebody they know and that has been vetted, not just, picking up the phone and just calling anybody.
So let's go into our stories a little bit. Yeah. So back in, I don't even know, it must have been like 2023, maybe early 2024, I get this call from a California broker, super nice lady. And she had a buyer coming here and I said, yes, I will absolutely help your buyer. So I sat down with the buyer. She has a bunch of questions, which was good. That's what you're supposed to. You're supposed to be interviewing them, making sure it's a good fit. And I sat down with the buyer and was going through the whole consultation about what I was going to do and, getting all their interests and all this stuff. I went through almost the whole spiel, get to the end and say, okay, so state of Washington, let's explain that there's buyer agency, there's seller agency. You have to understand that there's what's called a dual agency. Explained all that. Okay, so now here's my buyer agency agreement. And they're reading it and they're like, okay, that's fine. We don't have no problem signing. Wait a minute, what? I got to pay you. Nuh-uh. It was like the seller pays it. I said, no, actually here in Washington, it's different. And they stopped, put on the brakes, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's like, they didn't know. But they put on the brakes, went back and talked to the broker. The broker was very, got defensive at that moment. And so I don't know what happened to him. I didn't get to work with him, unfortunately. So, and you had something similar, but more recently.
Just last month, I had a referral that came through from a Midwest state and had an hour and 20-minute Zoom call with these lovely people that were looking to move out here to this area. Prior to our buyer interview, I sent over everything to prep them and let them know, we'll be talking about the buyer broker agreement. It is state law and all the things. Everything was great. I sent it over and they didn't sign. And I received this email basically stating that they didn't feel comfortable signing this and they felt pushed. And when I spoke with the agent, she didn't understand that here at state law, and she had told them that I was being
reasonable,
aggressive instead of
trying to take advantage of
transparent, and she, she was going to talk to them, but I probably lost it, but I felt I had done all the right things by sending over documentations, showing that it is law and what we're required to do.
Yeah, I did that too.
So it's, it's in one way, after being in the industry for going on 15 years, when this came out that it became law, I was like, oh no, but I actually kind of like it because it does make it transparent. And for the most part, we do see sellers still offering buyer broker compensation.
We do.
And so
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so even it's part of their marketing dollars to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though, you do have this buyer broker agreement, that's in the event that you're not paid by the seller.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, boy, what other industry do you work for free?
I know, right?
In hopes of getting paid at the end of a transaction. And, we have to make sure that we do get paid.
Right. And before we had that, you didn't get paid a lot of times.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you could spend months with somebody and not get paid. So that's totally
because
true.
They could go off and say, thank you for showing me everything. Now my cousin's wife's sister, I didn't realize she was in real estate, so I'm going to buy the house with her, even though you were the procuring cause and showed us 76 houses. So anyway, it's just an interesting thing. But really the point of this is that you have agents in other states, unless those agents understand the laws and what's happening in that state, and even locally, even we see things countywide, not in this particular scenario, but there's just different rules within counties and states. Even though you're an agent, you may have been, doing it 30 years, you may not know what those rules are in that area.
King County, coming over to here to Kitsap, you're on septic. We have different forms. I mean, there's just there's a lot of differences in
counties.
Yeah. And I don't know. I have a hard time dealing outside of my county, and that's one of the reasons I rarely go out. I mean, it's like very, very small surrounding areas, which I still stay up on because I do occasionally get buyers into there, but I don't do that because you don't know, and you don't want to mess it up because you don't want to hurt your client.
Right. And and we're going on to a different road here, but you've probably dealt with outside listing brokers from way a ways, and they're listing a property locally and they have no idea what health department requirements are and just all the things. Yes. And so there are idiosyncrasies with locality. And so really as a buyer or seller, you really want to make sure you have a local agent who understands. And when we're like Kitsap, we're close to Jefferson, Clallam, Mason County, Pierce County. So we're used to, because we're smaller counties. But if you get into some really big counties, I mean, those are big areas to really understand. So anyway.
And you guys, referrals is not a bad thing. So like if you're a buyer and you're getting ready to buy and you're moving away and you're talking to your local person, don't be afraid to talk to them. I mean, that's still a good thing. Talk to your local person first. That I would still strongly recommend it. Let them know what your wants and your needs and what your goals are, and share that how you work with a broker. I mean, sometimes people just don't mesh, and you want them, you want to find someone who's available all the time, or you can only be there on the weekends or whatever, and who's going to understand your work schedule. Make sure that they're asking those questions. But if it comes down to the state law and stuff like that, just don't assume that the way that they do it is the way that you do it in your state is always going to be correct in a different state, because that's not how it always is.
Mm-hmm. And back to the fact, our local MLS here in the Puget Sound, Northwest MLS, is member owned. So it really does run a bit differently than the rest of the country on the MLSs.
Right. Anything else that we need to talk to about that today?
I don't think so.
Okay, you guys, I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned something. Again, it wasn't the form that for either one of us. I mean, the form is the form, it's the law here. It's not knowing and, somebody overstating maybe what they don't know. Mm-hmm. So be very careful with your broker. Anyway, Betsy, thank you so much for joining me
Thank
today.
you.
It was always good to have
I
you.
appreciate
I
it.
love doing these
Thank
with you.
Thank you so much.
We're going
This
to
is
do more of
great.
these. I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I do. And I mean, it's a little bit different look about kind of what happens behind the scenes here
Yeah,
with real estate in Kitsap County.
yeah.
All right, you guys, I'm Niki Shelton, keeping it real. If this has helped you, go ahead and hit that like, follow, subscribe button, and we will see you probably next quarter.
Sounds good to me.
Bye, guys.
Take care.